the Andre Drummond, Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, had to. But we are live.
Nice.
Love it.
I tried to sneak it in early.
No. Welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday evening. We are joined by one of the OGs of Pistons Twitter, Pistons Thoughts. Welcome back to the show, man. Happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, always a fun time riffing.
Yeah, about the Drummond stuff, I definitely did delete that because it's like 5 years and I'm still getting tweets about it. I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna delete it. I think it's been enough time. People might forget.
Fair. Yeah, especially with Finals MVP it was time.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna have to delete that one. But
we all have them.
For sure. We do have a really fun show for you guys. I think with the topics, I was able to grab 9 topics in July. So I don't know how I did it. I find 10 topics every week. But we do have people in the chat excited for us to talk some Pistons basketball. So one of the first topics I did want to get into was the Summer League first team and second team. And kind of like before we kind of get into that, I just want to show people what the first team and second team was, and then I'll ask you the question. So we have Gigi Jackson, Jordan Miller, Scottie Pippen Jr., Reed Shepard, Khalil Ware on the first team, Bob Carrington, Donovan Clingan, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Jarace Walker, and Jalen Wilson on the second team. So my question to you is, do you feel that Ron Holland and Bobby Klitman got snubbed from the first or second team?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I wasn't watching enough other games. I was definitely in hibernation mode this summer league. But I mean, I think Ron Holland showed you what you want to see from him. Like the difference from first game to fifth game was nuts in terms of just like everything shot, like offensively at least. I think he played well. I think he got better. I think obviously he was pretty inefficient for the most part, but I don't know that he got snubbed. But as a Pistons fan, like I saw everything I wanted to see for the most part. And then Bobby, he just did everything well. It was kind of crazy, and I really think like he has a route to getting rotation minutes early. He can pretty much slide in with any lineup. I don't think he got snubbed, but again, as a Pistons fan, I saw everything I wanted to see and more.
Now, I know the word snub gets kind of thrown out very easily.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I didn't expect Ron or Bobby to make first team because I was a sicko. I actually watched a lot of Summer League because I was really interested about Khalil Ware. Because I had him in my top 5 Pistons big board that I did with Motor City Hoops. Thought he was going to be a really good player, and turns out it
looks good.
It looks really good. Miami gets another steal. I don't know how they do it every year, but I thought Ron should have made the second team. And I kind of rambled a little bit. I thought you saw enough from him to at least get a consideration for the second team.
Absolutely.
And to your point with Bobby, I was just so impressed with the kid. Like he doesn't do anything elite, but he does things really well. Like the playmaking, I think, when some Pistons fans maybe watch some preseason games, they'll see the playmaking that a lot of us saw during Summer League. And he has some guard skills there. It does help that I guess he did play point guard when he was younger. His ability to shoot the three, shot 40% from 3 in the Summer League. And I think that's something because we really didn't have those type of, prototypical 3-4 shooting 40% from 3 last year. I mean, we had Isaiah Livers and Piston legend.
Well, we had the archetype, just lesser quality.
Yeah, you had the archetype, but it was a 10U version. It just it didn't work the same. But
exactly,
no shade at Kevin Knox.
No. I mean, Kevin Knox was our best wing last year. Like, no BS. Like, he was the most complete, the best 3-and-D wing we had.
And we had to sign him like a week or two. I think a week or two after the season or before the season. I don't remember when it was, but
just
it's
to trade him a second year in a row.
dude, I mean, he's been in a lot of like trades. Like,
I know.
like I was kind of surprised we didn't sign him again. I was just like, well, if Trey
Same.
was still here,
Yeah.
maybe you would.
I mean, he kind of feels like a Trajan guy too, but
I think he was playing in the G League for the Golden State Warriors, and he was going crazy. I was just
right. I mean, he probably shouldn't be in summer league at this point, but
no, not at all. No, not at all. I know a lot of people are like trolling him for being in summer league. I was like, he's trying to make a roster, you guys.
Yeah,
be nice.
Yeah,
be nice. Like,
I mean, he was always in theory going to dominate, but yeah, I like Kevin Knox. Anyways,
yeah. All right, so summer league stuff, had a lot of fun. Obviously, Ron looked good, Bobby looked good, and then there were other players that I've talked about, like Don Jenkins.
Yep.
Which I like that they gave him a two-way, but I honestly think he's just going to be a cruise guard for the year. But I know some fans thought he was going to be a backup point guard, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But
yeah,
all in all, I thought that both of the guys, both Ron and Bobby, played pretty well. But we're going to get into a topic that I think has been debated among even a casual Piston fan for, I'd say, the last 20 years, and it's Carmelo Anthony. Now, Chauncey Billups was on Carmelo Anthony's podcast, and I'm going to play some audio of what they were talking about, and then we can kind of react to what he said. So here's the audio from Chauncey Billups.
Everybody thought you was going to go to Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Everybody.
Y'all get young Carmelo Anthony on that team. How do you, as the floor general, incorporate him into the mix, you know what I mean, without disrupting what's already going on?
Bro, it would have been the perfect, like, most people always be like, man, would he have started, or would Melo have started, or Tate? Well, what most people they forget is that at the time of that draft, we didn't have Sheed.
Mm-hmm.
We got Sheed at the trade deadline.
Right.
So Melo would have been starting off the top. Like, people always say, like, what do you mean? He would have been starting off the top. And we win at least 3 chips, bro. And I say it all the time. I be on him. I said, Brown would have had to leave Cleveland a lot earlier than he left. Because they never was going to beat us.
Yeah.
They never would have beat us. You know what I mean? Like, it's been crazy, man. It would have been crazy.
So that's a lot to dig into. I'll focus on the 3 chips, not the Pistons draft misses, because that's his opening old wounds that I don't want to open anymore. I think they should be closed. What do you think of Chauncey saying that? Yeah. What do you think of Chauncey saying that the Pistons would have won 3 championships if Carmelo Anthony was drafted by the Pistons?
So the only caveat really is you probably don't get Sheed. I don't think. I mean, maybe you end up getting him, but I think if you draft Melo, you might not end up with Sheed. I don't think they win in 2004 with Melo and no Sheed. I do think they run the East a lot longer. I mean, Chauncey went to Denver, played with them a couple of years, got him to the conference finals. So Chauncey has that firsthand experience playing with them. Granted, it was 5 years into Melo's career, so I don't know how it would have been different, but I feel like Melo probably would have come in, started. You don't have, I mean, who would have been our starting 4 at that point? Corliss?
I believe so, yeah.
Because NBA wasn't doing like small forwards playing power forward at that point. I think I don't think you win in 2004, but I do think you have a shot at the next 2, 3, or 4. I'm not saying they win them all, but I think they have like a finals run the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know. I mean, it obviously worked out how it worked out. I still think we could have won 2 in a row without him. But you get Melo, the ceiling gets raised, and it's like the window is open much longer. I think.
It's such a, because I know we like to have this revisionist history and insert, player X instead of, player Y. And I love these conversations because they're fun.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of key things that people are saying in the chat right now. Like Mega Hustle says, there's no guarantee that Larry Brown would have
very true
done Melo. Look at how he treated Carmelo in the 2004 Olympic team. And you have to take Larry Brown into account. Would Larry Brown start Carmelo right off the top? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure because he had a track record of not playing rookies.
Right.
And to your point, they probably don't get past the Pacers because the Pacers, I mean, I'm 32, so I did get to witness the going to work crew. Even though I was like maybe 11, 12, I still watched it.
Yeah.
And those were just defensive, gritty, full 48 minutes, full court pressure, like tough games.
That series was crazy.
Yeah.
Slugfest.
I really want a Pistons-Pacers rivalry rekindled really soon. I really do.
Especially with Hallie.
Yeah, and Siakam.
Yep.
But getting off topic a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure they win 3 chips with Carmelo Anthony. Not denying the talent, not denying the type of player he was. Would have elevated everybody. Probably would have made it a lot easier on Richard Hamilton and Tayshaun Prince and Ben Wallace and all those guys just because of his scoring prowess. But I'm not entirely sure they win 3 straight chips. And I'm not sure that LeBron leaves Cleveland earlier because Chauncey thinks, yeah, we would have made LeBron leave Cleveland earlier because we would have just been dominating and they would have never beat us. And to your point, maybe you don't get Sheed. Maybe you don't get Rasheed Wallace.
Right.
I think that's the one piece that a lot of people don't really take into account is getting Rasheed Wallace at the trade deadline. But that's just my stance on it, my take on it. I don't really know if you win 3 straight chips or 3 championships. You might win 1, I think, with Carmelo Anthony as he matures into kind of just like the type of player that he was.
The other part of it is, does Ben still leave? Because that's a huge factor. And do you get Melo to really buy in defensively? You probably do in that sort of situation with a bunch of vets who he can lean on in like a contending team off the bat. But yeah, I mean, it's A, do you get Sheed? B, does Ben leave still when he does? I don't know. I do think the window gets extended. And obviously when it was time to rebuild, you start with a lot more. But, you know, I think three was possible. I don't know about 3 in a row. Definitely, I don't think 04 happens, but I think you really have a window the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, and it could transition to where as Carmelo gets older, it starts becoming his team, and the vets get a little older. Like Chauncey gets older, Rip gets older. To your point, does Ben leave? Shit, does Mehmet Okur go to Utah because Melo's on a rookie deal? Like,
right.
Could you kind of keep those bench pieces together to the point where it kind of turns into just this core of just Melo and, you know, all the other guys, and they get better and grow together? I really don't know. And I've watched that 2K video of the Pistons winning 3 straight chips that they won.
Yeah.
I can't remember the YouTuber that made it. It's an all-time video. I've watched it like 100 times because I'm just a sicko. But honestly, man, like I feel like we talk about this at least once a year. Just this
it
time
comes
of year.
up. I mean, the craziest part of it is like we've heard from like Chauncey and Rip, and I forget who else, like what other players, and they were like, we thought it was a done deal. Like everybody thought Melo was coming to Detroit. Granted, I think maybe a Bosch to slide in for the Sheed role might have been, you know, for the sake of knowing how it turned out and knowing that we needed a 4. But it is crazy that like everybody, all the players were like, yeah, we thought Melo was coming. And then we got Darko.
I mean, Larry Brown. So Richard Hamilton actually kind of shared this, and I know this is off topic. So he was on a podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. And he said the whole team, like even Larry Brown showed up to watch him at Syracuse. And they said, we're drafting you. You're going to be a Detroit Piston, to the point where Melo's still in college and he's telling all of his friends in Baltimore saying, hey, we're going to Detroit, to the point where he just bought Pistons gear, got the whole family Pistons gear and everything. And I was just like, man, that's got to be heartbreaking. Like it really does. Like you get to go to a team that is basically set up to just dominate the East for the last from 03 to 08, basically making conference finals, which man, we got so spoiled on that team.
We really did. I mean, 6 conference finals and just nothing since. But it was a good run.
It was. Honestly, I love having these conversations about like what ifs and hypotheticals and all that stuff. But I do think we at least win maybe 1 or 2. I don't know about 3, but I mean, you never really know.
I mean, it's just the window is longer, and who knows what else Joe does trade wise. And like, I think there was a path to win 3. I don't know that it's a guarantee, but
yeah, I mean, even
would have been different.
Chuck Brewer makes a really good point. Said our window closed when Flip was hired. If we're all honest, he didn't understand Ben.
Yeah.
And how it worked. Yeah, I do agree with Chuck. Just because Flip's philosophy was all offense, and that team was built around defense, and they won a shitload of games. So like, I'll give Flip his credit. He was a hell of a coach.
Those 64 win year, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, like they won a lot of games, but like defensively, it just didn't like really materialize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to kind of stick with other podcasts. So Draymond Green was actually on Jeff's T podcast, and this is something that I had posted, and it kind of pissed off a little bit, pissed people off because of the Draymond Green stuff. But this is audio of Draymond Green talking about if he'd rather go to the Pistons or the Hornets if the Warriors traded him.
I tell you what, though. I pray to God, if they ever feel the need to get rid of me, like, at least send me somewhere.
Don't send straight to the Pistons.
Like, they gotta do you right, bro. I'm fucking around with you, bro. They gotta do you right, bro. If they're gonna send me to any, like, non-winning organization,
Detroit,
then send me to Detroit.
Yeah, facts.
Like, it's the crib. Like,
yeah, facts.
I can make you do to do that.
Yeah,
that's the crib. So if they're going to send me to any non-winning organization, I'd much rather it be Detroit than Charlotte.
So I kind of wanted to get into this and kind of get your thoughts on it. Hypothetically, would you welcome a Draymond Green trade to the Pistons if it did ever materialize?
I mean, here's the issue: is our team has lacked spacing for a long time.
Yeah,
Draymond doesn't help. I mean, obviously he brings defense and the other intangibles and all that, but it's like fit wise, absolutely not. I mean, like if this contract was up and he was on a smaller deal or something, like sure, why not? But at least for where the Pistons are right now, and in the next year or two, theoretically, I don't. There's no need. But I don't have any issue with them saying it. I would do the same thing if I was going to 2 bad teams. I'd want to go home too.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with where he's from versus Charlotte, because I think I saw a lot of Charlotte Hornets fan. Even I don't know if you saw it, but Miles Bridges replied to it and gave him the middle finger emoji.
Interesting.
Miles was kind of pissed off about it, but Draymond did sign a 4-year, $100 million contract,
right?
And he's getting paid.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I don't really know if the Pistons would be interested. It seems like every time there's kind of like a little bit of a drama with Draymond, the Pistons and Lakers might be interested in trading for him. I kind of think that's his agent talk, just having his agent put it out there, because why not? I wouldn't be opposed to it, but to your point, I get it where you're coming from in terms of spacing.
Yeah.
But maybe Bobby Klippman turns into that stretch 4. I don't know, man. Trying to give you hope. You never really know.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think Draymond, I mean, especially as he gets older, like in the next year or two, when theoretically we're competing for more than lottery balls, I think it just doesn't make sense. I think maybe a couple years ago there could have been a time and a place, but I think that time and place has moved on.
I thought the time was like 10 years ago when Van Gundy was the president and he was a free agent. And I know they tried to go after him and Al Horford, and the consolation prize was John Lure. No shot at John Lure. Great player, but the big difference and a big drop off in talent between the
pre-car accident, John Lure was a beast.
Yeah. She still has one of the most nastiest crossovers on Chris Paul I've ever seen in my life.
That man, he was the savior for a minute, as our first like modern stretch four, and then whatever that car accident was, just the Monstars took his abilities.
They really did. That was a simpler time, and I can't believe that was 10 years ago.
I know.
That seems so long ago. Back when Pistons Twitter used to have meetups. Now they won't even go to Pistons games.
When the time comes when the Pistons don't hate us as an organization, we'll make it happen again.
For sure, man. Those were fun, but
I know.
Honestly, I think Draymond, if he did ever come to Detroit, it would kind of be like Tracy McGrady when he's in Detroit, like way past his prime, kind of just like that.
Yeah,
that veteran presence.
Are we sure he's not past his prime now, or way past his prime?
Hey man, I don't know.
We'll see.
I don't know. We'll see. Golden State's offseason is pretty interesting. Not having Clay, they chose Draymond over Clay, which I don't know, man. It's kind of wild, but we'll see how it works out for them. But that's just such a weird situation. Before we do get into the next topic, which is going to be about the Pistons win total, I have to play a sponsor from our sponsor, Game Time Ticket app.
You guys, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, the Game Time Ticket app. With it being summer and our Detroit Tigers being so hot, how exciting would it be to go attend a Detroit Tigers game as they do push for the playoffs? Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. One of my favorite features within this app is the view from your seats feature. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. We're going to browse and look at upcoming Detroit Tigers tickets, because why not? They're one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. So the Tigers play the Cleveland Guardians tomorrow, which should be a really good game. And this is the feature I was talking about, the views from your seats. They have tickets as low as $7 right here in the upper bowl, $8 right here as well. There's a flash deal for $9. It's the cheapest you can get, but this is what I'm talking about. Views from your seat feature right here. They give you a full 360-degree view of where you're going to be sitting before you even do purchase the tickets. But I want you guys to go over and download the Game Time Ticket app today. And when you do that, you have to create an account and use the promo code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And we want to thank Game Time Ticket app for sponsoring today's podcast. But we are back. I want to talk about some Vegas lines, because why not? It's just odd season right now.
Yep. That's all we got.
Yeah, honestly, all we got. So BetMGM put out a win total for the Detroit Pistons, and the win total was 24.5. So I want to ask you, are you going to take the over or the under this year?
Oh, the issue is, have they gone over in the last 10, 15 years? I don't know.
I'm not
I don't
sure
know if anybody has that, but I feel like every time I see the win total over the summer, I'm just like, that's so low. Of course they're gonna. Who's not gonna win 25 games this year? I'm going over, just because they have to.
Yeah,
they just have to. I mean, I know Trajan came in, and they're taking the right approach. Like, they're not making any crazy moves to really try and win right now, but they have to. And honestly, I like a lot of what they've done this summer. I know some people are mixed on like the Tobias contract and the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade, but I think he accomplished what he needed to offensively. Defensively, we're going to see, but if they were going to be a bad defensive team anyways, you might as well be able to score a little bit too. I'm taking the over. I think the bottom of the East got weaker for sure. I'm not going to say it out loud, but there's a route to fight for the play-in. I did say it out loud. I couldn't help it. I think 24.5 is honestly a pretty solid line, but I think there's a world where they can inch towards 30.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So some more kind of information about this bet. So it was the most bet NBA season win total on BetMGM. So over 95% of the people bet the over for 24.5. So I don't know if this is a reverse jinx. I don't know if the people are saying 24 games. Yeah, the Pistons can win 24 games. I'm just trying to get my money. I personally am going to bet the under because
You're a smart man.
And I'll give you my theory why I'm doing this. And I told Laz my theory the last time we were talking about Vegas lines. I'm betting the under, but the reason why I'm betting the under is I've bet the over probably the past 4 or 5 years and I've lost. I'm hoping me betting the under, I lose again, and they go over that 24.5. So
Okay.
I can lose money. I already put $100 on the under. I'm hoping that they exceed the 24.5 and I lose, and maybe the Pistons, to your point, maybe they're a sneaky play-in team.
I won't say it out loud again, but yeah. No, that's well, thank you for your sacrifice if it works. I'd also like, speaking of sacrifices, I'd like to not sacrifice the Pistons for the Lions this year. I'd like them both to just be good and fun to watch. That's my little blurb. But yeah, I'm taking the over because, again, I think they just have to. I like what Trajan's done so far. I don't 100% think they're done. I think at the very least, like, Trajan gets it. Like, he understands that there's urgency to make them better, but there's not urgency to go and make like crazy win now deals.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think he's taking care of a lot of needs so far. And I know we'll talk about the backup point guard spot in a bit. The only thing he didn't do was get a defensive center. I mean, he got Paul Reed, but with Stu and Duren on the roster, I don't understand what's going to happen there. But yeah, I think offensively they're going to be a lot better, which is going to help their defense, which still needs a lot of work, though.
Yeah, I think to your point, Trajan checked a lot of boxes. He checked shooting, which we desperately needed, especially when you kind of look at you could go back on the Detroit Pistons Twitter account and look at the starting lineups. I mean, like, they're abysmal. Like some of them are just like pure abysmal. This
it hurts.
Like, Cade was averaging 22 and 8 with no spacing. You have like Tim Hardaway Jr., who can shoot threes, a lot of them, and make a lot of them. You get a guy Malik Beasley who's been a high volume 3-point shooter throughout his career, and
they finally got my guy.
They finally got your guy, man. And him and TJ Warren were your guys.
I know. I'll never forgive Jeff Bauer for that, but.
Hey, man. Well, they address shooting, and I do think like a defensive center I would have liked, but I think if you kind of like break down Paul Reed and the advanced numbers, he's a better defender than Stu is when you look at the metrics. And Stu is, I think Stu gets a lot of hate from the fan base, but he's a pretty good defender. Now, obviously,
I mean, he's probably your best defender, honestly, other than Nassar.
Yeah, I mean, I think people will be surprised how good Paul Reed is, and there could be situations where he could close out a game because he's been battle tested before in Philly for the last couple of years, and he had to step up when Embiid was hurt last year, and he delivered. He was putting up double doubles like they were nothing. So I think a lot of the fan base will be happy about Paul Reed, but.
Agreed. But I still don't understand like where the route to playing time is. unless it's Stu at the 4, and then there's that conversation.
I mean, I did my depth chart and I got clowned for it. I had him. I had him as a third string center.
I mean, that's I think what he, unless you're playing Stu at the 4, like he kind of has to be.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be Duren. You're paying Stu too much, and he realistically is your second best defender. I want Paul Reed to play. I don't want that to be misconstrued as I think he's a third string center. I just think as is right now, I don't understand how he's not on this depth chart.
Yeah, I mean, unless they just want to go full craziness and have a 2 big lineup off the bench.
Which I will take back me saying that Trajan gets it.
Hey, I'm not speaking anything into existence. I mean, when you look at the depth chart, you look at the players that they've brought in, it's like, okay, you got Duren starting right at the top. I think everyone understands that. But
yep.
Is Stewart going to play backup center? Is Paul Reed going to play backup center? I don't know, man. I kind of can't wait for maybe just a Rico Hines run or just some preseason.
Anything?
Yeah, anything. But honestly, man, it's dry days over here. But I think 24 and a half, 10 more games. I honestly think they could get anywhere from 28 to 30 wins.
Yeah.
I think
they can be in that range. We'll see if it happens. Because they've been able to be in that range for years now. It just hasn't happened.
It's to your point, like you said, playing. Like you're not the first person that has like mentioned playing. Like I do think there's a realistic pathway to get to the plan. I really do. You still have some cap space. You have some positions that you need to fill out. You have some positions to, I think, get marginally better in. And there is some free agents still out there. Or you could use it in trades. Like you've told the fans, like, hey, like maybe we can get some draft capital and get a decent rotational player.
Yep.
I think there's pathways there. I think last time I checked, I think Spot Trek said like 9.4 million, but I don't know if that's updated.
And then they still have the room exception too.
Yeah, I've seen anywhere from like 9 to 11 million. I don't know the exact number on that.
I think it's 9 after Clintman's deal happens. I think it's the end of the month. But it's 11 until then if they wanted to maneuver something or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think they're done, but I think 24 is kind of low, and I could understand why 95% of the people on BetMGM bet that over.
Yeah,
like if you hit, man, you're hitting. I mean, I know this is like completely off topic, but when the Pistons were on their losing streak, I was betting against them and winning every night.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna say I was too, but I have a tendency to bet on player props of the other team because I'm like, look, if they hit and the Pistons lose, I get money. If they don't hit, the Pistons win, I'm happy. So I like that mindset.
Yeah, there was some guy, I guess, on DraftKings that went over almost $200,000, placing $100 bet on the Pistons losing streak at the 28 game losing streak. I'm like, yo,
that's some impressive foresight.
You knew something. I know. I probably shouldn't have bet against the Pistons, but I had no faith. The first week of the season was a myth. It was just like after that.
Should have started 3-0.
Yeah.
And then Duren's ankles. At least he was wearing ankle braces, I think, at USA Select stuff.
He was.
See that? Didn't we talk about it last time? Where like I think part of the reason that he's such a bad defender, or was part of the reason, not all the reason, is I think he was just like way more timid in like going up for blocks and doing anything that has him in the air after the ankle injuries.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that, I do want to give James Edwards and Vinny Goodwill a shout out. So Vinny actually got to catch up with Duren when he was at select camp. And I guess he asked him directly about him not blocking shots. And Duren's just like, yeah, it wasn't my ankles, wasn't my injuries. It was just me. I wasn't giving 100% of my effort. I was like, okay. Accountability. Right. I like it.
Yeah. No excuses.
Yeah. Come into the season, locking in every night. And
Mm-hmm.
they just signed a brand new assistant coach that had
Yeah.
worked with Jaren Jackson Jr. and worked in Cleveland
Yep.
with Biggs, who someone said that he's going to be he's a lot different from Mark Bryan in terms of demanding more out of his guys. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're getting a guy that's going to hold him accountable and work with him every day on, just everything, I think that's much needed. But I was really surprised to hear that, like, Jaylen Duren basically said I wasn't trying, which, hey man,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, it's also like, I don't know. Let's say hypothetically I was an NBA player and I'm on a team that just has no chance to win every night. You're just not going to get my 100% effort. It's just never going to happen. So I think that's a big part of too, just why the team was terrible defensively, and Duren specifically, I guess. But I think having a new coach who pretends they want to win basketball games at least, and having a better roster, I think that's gonna just instantly elevate effort level on both ends of the floor. I hope.
yeah, I think it will. And getting a guy that's not too old, but still young enough to play in Paul Reed, going against him in practice every day, I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
will, iron sharpens iron. Like, they're going to
Yep.
get better in practice. And, Paul Reed's a guy that, can shoot threes,
Yep.
protect the rim a little bit here and there, but I think it'll be good. But I know we had talked about his ankles, and maybe that was the reason why he wasn't protecting the rim, but apparently it wasn't even the ankles thing. It was just like, hey, like, last season was a lot. It was taxing. I just wasn't locked in all the time, which I get. At the end of the day, like, everybody's human, and I'm sure it was really taxing on those guys. Losing 28 straight games, being the laughing stock, because every day on ESPN it was something, like, every day. Like,
It was kind of fun being national news again, even for the complete wrong reasons.
That's probably the most ESPN coverage we got probably since the 04 run.
Mm-hmm.
And for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Ever since the Chauncey AI trade. That was the last time.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember getting kicked out of class for that trade. That was back when Woj was at Yahoo, and I had like a BlackBerry, so I'm dating myself how old I am.
Yeah. I probably had the same phone at the same time.
Yeah, it had like a little round ball on it, and it was just like the BBM message from Woj, and it was just like, Chauncey Billups traded to Denver.
Right.
I was like, I know I swore and dropped the F-bomb. Like, you gotta be effing kidding me. Hey,
I remember I was in gym class, so like that was a good place to be for that trade, but like we were all going crazy.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I do want to kind of transition into, there's some trade rumors, obviously, with it being summer. And Isaac Okoro was mentioned in an NBA Central piece, and obviously they were citing somebody else that does have sources.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of give your opinion on this. Do you think Isaac Okoro would be a good fit for the Detroit Pistons to try to trade for?
I think he'd be a good fit. My issue is that you have sort of redundancy in the same talent tier, I guess. Like Isaac would come in and immediately be your best wing, two-way wing. But the issue for me is theoretically what it would cost, either in a sign and trade or just if there's a way you can, which there's no way you can sign him without Cleveland Magic. But I think for the cost and for the amount he upgrades that position, I don't think it's worth it. In a vacuum, I think he's a great fit. But I think if you're going to do this, Asar and Ron Holland are going to fit that role, hopefully in the next 2-3 years. And maybe you say, okay, well, you get a Caro till that happens, which I get. But I just think for the price that it would theoretically take, I think it's not worth it for where they are, because I don't think it's enough of an upgrade.
Yeah, so I was doing some more digging, and shout out to Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. He wrote a whole piece about this, like right before we went on, and kind of like talking about like Cavs offered him, I think, anywhere from 8 to 10 million on a multi-year contract, and his camp is holding out for 12 to 15 million. So obviously it's a money thing at the end of the day, which I get. And the Cavs are asking a lot to even move him, which hey, I get as well. I don't honestly think that the Pistons are in a position to try to trade for an Okoro because, like, to your point, you have an Asar Thompson, you have a Ron Holland who could possibly mold into and develop into a player like Isaac Okoro, maybe better. Isaac Okoro's only 6'5".
Right.
Asar looks like he's like 6'7" now. There's a picture of him and Cade in summer league, and he was like towering over Cade. Yeah. Asar looked like he grew like an inch or two since we last seen him. I think Ron Holland is 6'7" as well.
Yeah.
I think the Okoro thing is also who his coach was, JB Bickerstaff. So there's kind of like that connection that people try to make, but I just don't really think that the Pistons should try to trade, assets right now because you're in a really early stages of under a new head coach, under a new president, new front office. They probably want to evaluate this team and see what are the next steps of getting this team, closer to playoff contention each and every year. I don't really think I don't want to call him like a marginal player, but I think it would just be it would be like a little chess move. It wouldn't be a huge move where like king me type of shit,
Yeah. He functionally helps your team right now for sure, but not enough to warrant giving up assets.
Yeah.
But again, if you could just sign him outright in the $10 to $12 million range, like hell yeah, I'm in. But that's not how this goes.
No, I know Michael Scotto had mentioned that they might just do a Dorian Finney-Smith for a Isaac Okoro swap straight up, which would be the Spider-Man meme because they're basically both the same player.
Right.
This Dorian Finney-Smith a little bit taller. Yeah, Okoro's only 23 too, and I was just like, oh, he was in the Killian draft. Interesting.
Right.
He was the 5th pick. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. I do not remember. I think my brain, like once we got the 7th pick, I don't even remember the first 6 picks because I was just so pissed off because I was like locked in on LaMelo Ball.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was like, man, we got screwed again. COVID season ended early. Man, what a time!
That was just give us like, weren't we like 1 game away from the best odds or something, or 1 loss away, or 2 losses?
So we had to play Minnesota, I think 1 or 2 more times. Minnesota eventually won the lottery. Who's to say if we lost, we don't get Anthony Edwards?
Right.
But I mean, Troy was a GM, so it probably would have been James Wiseman. But I mean,
yeah, it would have been.
I got to stop doing that. I really do. People are getting mad at me for doing that, but
it just it happened, or it almost happened. It would have happened. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Sarr is, looking like Alex Sarr out there. So I'll just say
we'll see. But yeah, he really is. I love that they went and got Valanciunas too.
And Rashall Holmes and Marvin Bagley.
Yep.
Got all the centers.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to stick with the 2020 draft. So a former Piston signed a Exhibit 10-day deal with the Brooklyn Nets. So what are your thoughts on Killian Hayes getting a second chance to try to compete for a roster spot with the Nets?
I think that no matter what I do for the rest of my Pistons Twitter career, people will be sending me my old Killian Hayes tweets. So I'll start there. Yeah, I was wrong. It is what it is. It happens. But I'm happy for him. Like, I'm still rooting for him. I think on a team like the Nets, maybe he can stick. I think that there needs to be a warning sign in the arena if him and Ben Simmons ever step on the floor at the same time. But I don't know. I think Killian probably has a shot to stick on a rebuilding team. I think we probably saw enough to know that he'll probably never actually be a rotation NBA player. But I don't know. I mean, good for him getting another shot. Like, I mean, if it doesn't work out, I'm sure he'll go play overseas and maybe get another shot at some point. But
Yeah. So when I saw this, I wasn't like too surprised because there was like I don't remember if it was Shams or Woj said that he was having a private workout in Vegas, and that's it. The Nets attended, and obviously the Nets are going through a rebuild. They're going through just a complete revamping of the roster. Obviously, they still have pieces like Cam Johnson and others that are still good basketball players. I think this is a good opportunity for Killian to try to make the roster.
Yep.
Here's my thing about Killian, and I people think I don't like Killian. That's not it. It's just I had really high expectations with him being a 7th overall pick, a 1st round pick, I should say, with him, and those expectations just didn't get met. And I want to say that. I always thought watching him, he had the physical tools to be a point guard in the NBA. I always thought it was mental with him. I always thought the mental part of his game was blocking him from reaching his full potential, because he would have games out there where, you know, he's stuffing the stat sheet. He looks good. Maybe you get a 3-pointer or 2 to fall in a quarter, and you're like, okay, he's putting it all together. But it's just like the mental part of his game, the consistency with his shot, his jump shot changes, his form changes, the way he lands. I think if a team is really invested into him, it's going to take dedication and development, but he's really got to prove to the Nets that, like, hey, I can be your lead point guard. I can be the floor general out there. And I think he does have a good opportunity to do that, especially with Brooklyn trying to put their hat in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes.
Yeah, and he no one better suited to lead that team. Looking for ping pong odds.
Yeah, I mean, some people just, you know, were saying that the Nets were getting a head start on the Cooper Flood sweepstakes, which I'm never gonna tell fans how to fan, but I honestly, I will tell you, I'll be honest with you guys, I choked on my drink when I read that. I was like, yo, you guys are wild. But I'm happy for him at the end of the day. Like I want to see like what happens. Some people when I talked about it in like a short form reel that I posted, like, oh, he's gonna haunt us. He's gonna be like a Dinwiddie. I was like, I don't know about that, you guys. I think he'll do well, but he's got to make a roster first.
If he turns out to be a Dinwiddie, then good for whoever gets him, because that would be miraculous. And that's coming from a diehard Killian guy for the first 3 years. But I think if that happens, it just is what it is, and no one could have seen that coming.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to a guy that in my closet, Killian Hayes jersey, Sekou Doumbouya jersey, I was all in on the French Revolution.
God, that should have worked.
I was
should have worked.
I was all in on that. I mean, I still have the Killian Hayes jersey, to the point where, like, I think I might just wear it to an event next time I go to an event, just to troll people.
You should.
Just for the hell of it. But it'd be a good fun story. But I'm happy for him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like a lot of people, like, there's no players that I'm not like happy for to see get another opportunity. Like, I understand, like, a lot of fans like don't like him for how bad he was, and I get it. But it's like, I don't know. There's people.
I mean, if Tyrese Halliburton wasn't the player he is, I think some people would maybe have a different opinion, because you look at the type of player he is, and then you look at Killian, and I think it kind of magnifies it to the point where,
for sure,
Pistons fans get that PTSD, like with like Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell all over again.
Yes. And I know, like, a lot of Pistons Twitter was like all in on Killian, but like there was also a big section of people who were like, Halliburton is absolute no-brainer. Like, what are you even thinking of considering anyone else for? They were right.
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story multiple times. I went on a podcast with some you know Pistons fans. They don't do the podcast anymore, but I was telling them, I said, I'm feeling Tyrese Halliburton. And they clowned me for it. They're like, no, man, Tyrese Halliburton's not going to be good. That shot's not going to translate. And they were all on the Killian Hayes train. And I was like, maybe you guys are right. Maybe I don't know ball. Maybe I'm wrong. Kind of like revisiting it. Maybe I knew what I was talking about a little bit.
Maybe. Just maybe. You were right.
Oh man. Oh man. I do want to focus on kind of point guards in the
Yep.
backup point guard position, because I think this is the one topic where when I talk to Pistons fans, Pistons content creators like yourself, I'm having such a hard time with it. I don't know who's going to be the backup point guard. I don't know if it's going to be Marcus Sasser. They kind of tried to experiment with it in Summer League a couple of weeks ago. Is it going to be Jaden Ivey? Do you really want your, former 5th overall pick being the backup point guard? What's your stance with it?
I don't think it can be Sasser. I think Sasser is a bucket. I don't think he's a point guard. And I didn't really realize that when he got drafted. And a lot of people were like, dude, he's not a point guard. Like, I put him on the point guard depth chart when he got drafted, and everyone was like, absolutely not. He's a shooting guard. He's a bucket. He's small, but he's not a point guard. And they're right from what we've seen. Maybe there's more there that we haven't seen. Maybe, by the time the season comes around, he is that guy. But I think it has to be Ivy, and here's why. I think to be at their best individually, which means best for the team too, Cade and Ivy need to lead separate units. Now, I do think they can play together. I think there are stretches where they can be really good together. But I think for them individually to be at their best, they both need the ball in their hands. And Cade's probably a better off-ball player than Ivy at this point, mainly because of the shooting. I think his rookie year, Jaden Ivey's rookie year, when Cade was out, I think you saw what he could be as a lead guard. And I think the playmaking was sort of like Bobby Klintman, where at least I didn't know that was part of his game. Sure, it's not there all the time, but he gets guys easy looks. I just think both of them to be at their best, they're leading separate units. Number, 5th overall pick. I don't have an issue with him coming off the bench. I didn't last year, but you need to play him starter minutes. Like, he can't be getting backup point guard minutes, but he can be your 6th man off the bench, lead the bench unit. Cade comes back in, slides off ball. They're running it together with spacing around them, and that should work out. But I mean, even when Cade was out a couple games this year and Jaden Ivey just has the ball in his hands, which Monty Williams, I guess, didn't watch his rookie season tape at all. Because we all saw that he was better as the lead guard and just Monty wouldn't stagger. I think if we saw Monty stagger them last year, this would be a different conversation, because I think it would have worked. I think that you would be able to see Ivy lead the second unit when they're staggered. And I think it wouldn't even be a discussion right now.
Yeah, it's because when Tyus Jones got signed the other day, because I think that was one name that a lot of Pistons fans locked in on. They're like,
that was the last name for me.
Yeah, I see some people mentioning Markelle Fultz, which I wouldn't be opposed to, but the shooting is kind of concerning.
Yeah,
maybe you go Patty Mills. I don't know. But I think, to your point, Ivy should play around 25 to 30 minutes a night. He shouldn't play backup point guard minutes, 10 to 15.
Like Monty was playing him 20 minutes again. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in the chat that are like, I don't even know how Monty didn't use him correctly or properly, even watch film, to your point, but I think the pathway for the backup point guard position, I thought Sasser progressively got better each game in the summer league as a backup point guard. I think you really saw it the last 2 games where he was facilitating a little bit more, but I don't really view him as a point guard. I think he's more of kind of like a combo guard. Someone had mentioned in the chat a Will Bynum 2.0, just a spark plug, a guy that can, get his own and just kind of, come in the game. You're down 5. I can get you 10 points. We get back in this game, right?
Right.
I think that's more of his role, kind of like a Lou Williams type, if you will. Not comparing the two, but kind of just like an instant that offense role, type of bench guy that teams need. I'd much rather see him play that. I think Ivy, to your point, his rookie year, we saw the playmaking, we saw the ability of him getting to the basket at will with his athleticism, his speed, his acceleration, and the transition game.
Yep.
I also think him being able to drive into the lane and just kind of kick it out to 3-point shooters, and we have more 3-point shooters now. I
on
think
both units.
on both units, I think it'll really help. I'd much rather see Ivy play that backup point guard position for the Pistons because I think he's shown the ability that he can do it, and he's shown the ability. If I'm getting minutes, I'm happy. I'm not going to pout about not starting next to Cade. Like he said in multiple press conferences, like, I just want to play basketball. And if you're going to allow me to play basketball, give me the minutes that like I kind of want, I think I deserve.
Yeah.
I think there's a pathway for him to be a backup point guard. And I know a lot of people, again, I made a depth chart and I did not have Jaden Ivey starting. I had Malik Beasley starting at the 2 and Ivy manning the second. Ivy manning the second unit because I think Ivy is just so valuable as a player that him manning the second unit, you have a guard out there that could score it well. He can hit the mid-range, he can hit the 3, and he can facilitate. I honestly think if that's the pathway they want to go and they don't want to address possibly getting a backup point guard, I could kind of get behind that vision of saying, like, we believe in Jaden Ivey of being that backup point guard.
Yeah. I mean, again, as long as he's playing starter minutes, I think the optics don't matter. Like, I mean, with Monty, it was you're benching him. You're not just like bringing him off the bench. Like, there's a difference there. Whereas here, they'd just be bringing him off the bench, staggering essentially. I mean, JB staggered Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland a lot. So hopefully we see that here. I think we will. And also we're not going to get full bench lineups, but I just think for the sake of spacing in the starting unit and for the sake of maximizing Jaden Ivey, I think that's probably the best role for him at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. Someone's like, did Monty give Jarrett Jack a note because Jarrett Jack was doing all bench lineups in the summer league on the last game?
Yeah,
I was like, man, you guys got to chill out, man. I bet you coaching is probably so difficult and so hard. Maybe you don't even realize you're doing an all bench lineup
until you've done it 45 games in a row, and after the third or fourth game in a row, people start asking you, and you're just like, "Oh, I did that. That's great. I'll stop." And then you do it 40 more times.
Yeah, I mean, that season needs to have its own 30 for 30. Like just the season, because like that was an historic run, and it was an historic run for the wrong reasons.
That was just it felt like a reality show. Like it felt like that where it's just like they're just playing it up for the drama. Monty's not doing that because he thinks it's the right thing to do. There's no way. But he did it.
I think the funniest, I know we're going off topic. I think the funniest part of just like the Monty era was the pressers when like you'd have like Omari, Mike, or James ask him a question, and then he'd be like, "Yeah, I don't know. I probably won't do that anymore." And then it was just like game time, be like, "I think I'm going to do it
6
again."
minutes into the game. Like,
yeah, it's like the goofy memes. Like, I'll fucking do it again. Watch.
I know a lot of people like gave our beat writers crap last season, but they were digging with Monty, like asking the obvious tough questions. That's just like, and he said all the right things every press conference.
Yeah,
I
mean,
again.
The Knicks game is probably the most passion I've ever seen out of him.
I thought that was a turning point. I was like, okay, maybe he cares now.
Nope.
Psych. Good press conference though.
It was got a soundbite.
Yeah.
This is a fun question, which it's off season. There's not like a whole lot to talk about. I want to know, which core 4 player do you think will improve the most this season?
I think it's going to be Asar. Because I think he's starting at such a low point, I think shooting wise, that I think any improvement just opens up his game a ton. I think defensively, I mean, I thought he was great last season, but I think he'll be even better having, played however many games he played this year, in the NBA, like getting used to the speed and the physicality and all that. Yeah, I think it's a SAR. I think if Duren does make a leap defensively, then he's an all-star.
Yeah.
Maybe not this year, but if he can take steps defensively, then I think he is. I mean, because he improved a ton offensively last year. Like,
Yeah.
you could toss him the ball in the post, and he's gonna get you buckets. And I mean, who knows if that short mid-range shot ever actually becomes practical in game. Form looks nice, high release point, sort of Rasheed Wallace release point. Yeah, I don't know. I say Asar. I think Duren's a runner-up. I don't know. I mean, it depends on the role for Jaden Ivey.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know if he's going to be in a spot where he can improve, like, obviously to fans. I think he can do really well in certain roles. I don't know if he's going to have this sort of space and opportunity to really make that big next step. And then Cade is just, I mean, I think he's going to steadily progress like he did going into last year. And I think having shooters around, like, what was he at this year stats wise?
Cade?
Yeah.
I could look it up real quick. Give me a second. I don't have it pulled up in the right now, but I can look it up. I think he was like 22 and 8.
Yeah. But if you look
yeah.
at potential assists for him too, like, it is crazy how many open missed shots he created for his teammates.
Yeah.
And that, in theory, is gonna be better with Tobias and Malik and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Fontecchio being here the whole year.
Yeah, so Cade put up almost 23 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 7.5 assists last year.
Yeah, I can see those all going up 3 or 4. Like I really can. Maybe not the rebounds, but assists and assists. It's very, very conceivable to see him averaging 2 or 3 more assists a game.
10 assists, a double-double.
Yeah.
You know, like, who's to say he can't do like 25, 3 and 10 a night?
Right. That's what I see as possible. So it's like, I don't think that's the biggest improvement possible on the team, but like, I think he can take that next step to become like superstar.
Yeah, I thought this was a fun question to kind of talk about, kind of dig into. I think Asar is an easy choice, kind of given the type of season he had last year and the reports of him finally getting medically cleared, being able to work with Fred Vincent. He's in the gym, Trajan said, every day working on his shot. And we've kind of seen, if you kind of go back and look at the players that Fred Vincent has worked with throughout his career, all those players have kind of upticked in their 3-point percentage and their shooting percentage. But I'm going to be different. I'm not going to choose Asar. I think it's going to be Duren. I think Duren locks in defensively this year. I think he gets up because I know for a fact he reads what people say about him.
Yeah.
I know it for a fact. I catch him looking at my Instagram stories anytime I post. I'll see him from time to time, like back when Twitter actually you could see who liked your tweets. You used to like tweets of like, you know, people like talking shit about him.
Yep.
I think he's going to be motivated to lock in defensively. I really do. I wouldn't surprise me if he takes a leap defensively. And to your point, offensively, he took a huge step and he almost shot 80% from 3, which for a big man, that's actually like really, really good. And he did it in his second year.
How many threes did he take?
Jaylen Duren?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me go. Did I say threes? I meant free throws.
Okay. I was like, did he take 5 threes? I was like, I don't remember those. Yeah, 80% free throw, big man, A+.
Yeah. I mean, that's because when you kind of like put their stats together, him and Drummond are very similar, but the biggest difference is the free throw percentage of shooting just close to 80%, and the form looked good. And there were instances where people at Team USA were really impressed with him, like Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant. Like that's a man. Like he's gonna be a force. I mean, we've seen praise from like Paul George saying like he's going to be like a baby Dwight Howard once he gets into his man body and just develops. So I'm probably going to go Duren in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. Yeah, like I said, if he takes really any step if he becomes an average defender, then I think sky's the limit for the team too.
I mean, average defender, he's probably what, a Bam Adebayo?
I mean, you said it.
I mean, I think that's a comparable. I mean, if you kind of look at like the type of players that they are, but I mean,
if the mid-range shot comes around, if he starts taking it, but yeah, I mean, Vincent probably helps him a ton too.
Yeah, I think he helps Ivy, Duren, even like Cade shot 35% from three. Like, let's say Cade upticks to 38. Like, that's a huge difference. That's going to get you some wins at the end of the day.
And he should have more open looks. So,
open looks, more passes. I honestly think Cade makes an All-Star team this year.
I think as long as the Pistons aren't like 20 games under 500, he makes the All-Star team. I mean, him and Paolo had the same exact stat line, right? Like when All-Star voting was happening. It was just the Magic were obviously a much better team. And that's really what it was.
I mean, Magic fans are trying to pry Cade away from Detroit. They're like, get him out of Detroit. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I hate it. I'm glad Trajan seems to know what he's doing. And like he understands the assignment. Cause I can't deal with that for another 3-4 years. Yeah.
To Troy's point, I don't want to give him a pass, but there was a lot of cooks in that kitchen.
For sure. For sure.
Like, I don't even know like how much autonomy he actually had and like actually trading or even like making moves. Like, because I remember watching an interview with like Bryce Simon and Amari on their podcast when they had her and tell him. And he's just like, we looked at the free agents last summer and we didn't feel like it was time. I was like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I didn't even disagree with that because I'm like, Cam Johnson was the guy in that class that we could have conceivably got. I had my concerns, the injury concerns mainly. So I understood that approach. It's just executing that vision was like, you get 2 second-round picks for completely useless player at this point. In Joe Harris. But yeah, I mean, I agree. A lot of cooks in that kitchen. Definitely not all on Troy, but there was a lot of his stamp. A lot that was going on.
Yeah, I don't want to say he's blameless in all of it, but I also think that he didn't have full control like some people think he did.
Right.
And it's kind of funny when you look at Washington and you look at all the centers and then you see Sadiq go back home to Washington. Like, I'm like, bro, like if they go out and like just get like I was like going down like kind of like the players that like Troy signed. I'm like, if they go out and get like a Jahlil Okafor or Josh Jackson or bring in,
I mean,
like
you need Okafor to secure the number 1 pick. So
yeah, I mean, I don't even know where he's playing anymore. I think the last time I looked, it was like China or something like that. I was like, wow, that's crazy. One of the next questions I had, and it's a fun question. So Cade Cunningham just got extended.
Yep.
So Jaden Ivey and Jaylen Duren are extension eligible going into next summer.
Yep.
So I want to know, if you had to pick one right now, who would you rather extend? Jaylen Duren or Jaden Ivey?
Oh, this was actually part of my point too when I thought that Jaylen Duren was like my second most improved on the team, is because the extension eligibility is coming up, and I think to your point, he'll be motivated. I think it's Duren because I think you can't replace what Ivy gives you, but you can get a better fitting 2 guard next to Cade. For theoretically a fraction of the price, or that's where you splurge, push all your chips in and get like an all-star shooting guard. Whereas Duren, while you can definitely find cost-effective centers that are decent, I think, like we're saying, like if he takes steps defensively, I know it's a lot of ifs, but like if the shot actually starts happening, which I don't even think he needs that right now, because like what he did last season, like he was very effective scoring the ball. Yeah, I think it's Duren, just because I think you can get a better fitting 2 guard, and that's really all it comes down to for me. Is I prioritize fit at the 2 next to Cade more so than center, because I mean Duren lob threat. If you have 3 other spacers on the floor, it's like with Cade, I think you're golden.
Yeah, I think these are conversations that we're all going to probably have this season. Kind of like getting into like, are you going to extend Ivy? Are you going to extend Duren? And I mean, I've even seen like, trade Jaden Ivey while his value's high right now talks.
Right.
And I've even seen, trade Jaylen Duren while his value's high talks. If I had to choose right now, I think I'm with you. I probably would rather extend Jaylen Duren, but I will say this. I'm not entirely sure either of these guys get the max, kind of given where their careers have started off so far. There's a world where maybe you can keep Jaylen Duren and Jaden Ivey with their extensions. Maybe they get a similar extension to a Stu. You never really know. Because kind of given like the way that they've played so far, like Jaylen Duren offensively has shown you that he has somewhat of a bag, but defensively, the first 2 years of his career so far, it's kind of been up and down.
Yeah.
But if I did have to choose, it'd probably be Duren, just for the fact that we look at the type of money that centers are getting. You look at what Nick Claxton got this summer, $100 million. You look what Isaiah Hartenstein got from OKC. He got paid.
Yeah, he did.
I think a player like Duren and his potential and his ceiling is way harder to replace right now in the current NBA than it would to Jaden Ivey. And I also think Jaden Ivey would be hard to replace. But to your point, there are shooting guards, 2 guards that might not be as athletic as Jaden Ivey, but fit-wise, Cade is the type of player where you could find a shooting guard that maybe is a movement shooter, maybe is a pretty good 3-point shooter, and they would fit better with him. And that way you don't really have to break the bank that way. But I'm with you. I probably go Duren, just kind of given where the center market is and the type of player that he could possibly become.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even someone like when there were rumors of like, oh, they're probably going to move on from one of these guys, because you got guys like Gary Trent Jr. who you can bring in for relatively cheap, and they just slide right in and just like better fit with Cade. Obviously, does not give you the upside and what Jaden gives you now on ball, but like, like
it's not so much saying that like we don't value Jaden Ivey. We do. It's just his skill set, I think, would be really hard to replace too. Like you're not seeing too many combo guards that are blur and transition that you can replace. There's not a ton of those guys out there in the open.
You wouldn't be able to replace it. It's just you would just go a different direction for sure.
Yeah, you would kind of value like how Dallas has kind of just filled role players around Luka, and then you have like the PJ Washingtons and others that kind of they're better fits versus of like what Jaden Ivey could possibly become. I'm not saying he's going to be like a Kyrie Irving or anything like that, but you kind of get like where I'm going at with it.
Yep.
Do you have time for some Q&A questions from people in the chat?
Let's do it.
All right. This comes from Ryan Boseman. He wants to know, what is your starting 5 for
I think it's similar to yours that you were talking about. I think you go Cade, Malik Beasley. So here's where the real decision for me comes is I go Fontecchio, then Tobias, then Duren. I'm just going full offense in this starting lineup. Because I think if you don't, I think you can put Asar instead of Fontecchio, maybe bring him off the bench. I think there's a world where you can start Asar at the 2 with Fontecchio and Tobias. And then that shifts Jaden Ivey to that backup point guard role we were talking about. But I like Beasley more than Tim Hardaway Jr. In terms of fit. with that starting group. Yeah, that's my starting five. There's a lot of different arguments you can make for basically outside of Cade, Tobias, and Duren. You could convince me, honestly, any one of the two or the three on this team. I think there's a lot of different combos, but that's my starting five.
Yeah, I think when you talk about starting lineups and you talk about Cade, Tobias, and Duren, those are just locks to start.
Yeah,
I think the conversations that you have is, okay, who's going to be shooting guard? Who's going to play small forward?
Mm-hmm.
So my starting five that I had a couple of weeks ago, and that it's subject to change. I think it was Cade, Malik Beasley, Asar, Tobias, Duren, just because I wanted some defense out there, and
which makes a ton of sense. I get it.
Which, I know Beasley is not known as a lockdown defender, not even an average defender, but having Asar being able to switch for him, I think would be something that I think the Pistons do look at. But to your point, if they want to go full offense, I'm digging the Fontecchio, and I'm glad
I need Fontecchio to start.
I'm glad that we were wrong though, because
dude,
when we were talking about free agency,
still would have done it.
I'm so glad we were wrong though, because that was just, oh man, like what would we say, like 20 million for Fontecchio?
Yeah, the Jeremy Grant deal.
Yeah, and Trajan's like, nope, 8 million.
I mean, in our defense, we had the same mindset. I feel like as a lot of front offices going into the summer in terms of like how much things would cost, but then you get to the summer, the middle class of NBA free agents definitely got wrecked.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, a guy like Tyus Jones signed him for $3 million when he probably could have got 10 to 15.
Yeah,
if he would have just said, "Hey, I want to be a backup."
Yep.
Like
Gary Trent Jr. turned down more money. Caleb Martin turned down more money.
Bro, Clutch Sports has been taking L's. Like,
yeah.
If I'm an NBA player, I would kind of question signing with Clutch. I might just go to Excel and see what Michael Tellem could get me.
A Pistons contract. I'm just kidding.
It's all good. This is a good one from Johnny. How far do you think we go in the in-season tournament?
Farther than last year. I think that's an easy early test for this young mixed with veteran team to really like, that's what they're playing for. And I know it's like, you want to make the play in and all that, but I think at least early on when this is going on, I think that's where all their effort and energy is going to be. Wasn't a real answer to the question, but I don't really know.
I don't know either. I don't even know what block they're playing in. Personally, I haven't changed my opinion on it. I think the in-season tournament's stupid. I think it's a waste of everyone's time. There's no benefit for these players to even do anything. Like, who won the in-season tournament? The Lakers?
Yes. Right? Right.
They hung a banner.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, I don't think that's banner worthy. I think that's maybe something put in the locker room. It's not like hanging a championship banner. It's like, oh, we won the in-season tournament. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something else to, make the regular season a little more fun, but I get it. Yeah, but for a team like the Pistons, like this should be what you're playing for early on.
Yeah, I mean, I probably sound like an old man yelling at the clouds right now, but I just don't like it, man. I'm just like, why do we need this? Like, it's...
Yeah. I didn't like the play-in tournament originally. I still think they need to change it. But so I was like you there with the play-in tournament, but I do like it now. I still think they need to adjust it, but
yeah, I mean, the play-in tournament I can understand just for you don't want a bunch of teams tanking at the end of the year.
Right.
Like, can you imagine how many teams would have tanked for Victor at the end of the year?
Yeah. How about the one that successfully did it?
And Spurs, yeah.
And didn't get us.
Oh man, that's salt in the wound. For sure. Probably even admitted that he was tanking for Wemby. He's like, yeah,
Really?
we're taking. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious to
I
everybody,
mean,
Troy.
I think it was off the record. I think I want to say Corey Woods told me that, like, kind of like
Okay.
off the record after like the mics were off. He's like, yeah, we were trying to tank for Wemby. It just didn't
It's like,
work. I was like, respect.
yeah,
I get
yeah.
it. This comes from Michael Powell. It's our a Ron Holland question. How much time do you think Holland will get? Do you see him spending any time in the G League?
I don't really know. I wouldn't be opposed to him spending time in the G League because I think moving the team downtown with you is what that should be used for. Not like, send him there for weeks at a time, but it's like I think he could play with the G League team and also be with the Pistons. That said, I don't know because it does depend on the starting lineup. Because if Asar is not starting, I don't see a route, and I know JB's not going to run all bench lineups, but there's going to be 2, 3, 4 bench guys on the floor at the same time. I don't know where you can split the minutes there if Asar's not starting. I don't think you can play them together right away. I think there's definitely like long-term vision is they could play together. But right now, I don't really know. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Holland starts playing like less than 10 minutes a game, in all honesty. That obviously could jump up real quick as the season goes on. I mean, Herb Jones, who, the Langdon front office drafted in New Orleans second round pick, he played, I think it was 30 plus minutes his rookie season. So there's definitely a route for Ron to get meaningful minutes. Just as the roster is constructed right now, I don't know where that's going to be. But I do think they should utilize the G League team with him, especially if he's not playing more than 10 minutes a night.
So what I'll say is their G League team took a big hit. They lost guys like Stanley Amude. They lost guys like Malcolm Cazalan. They lost a lot of guys. The thing with if Ron does play in the G League, his role would probably be number one option.
Right.
Which I think there's positives and negatives with that. I think the negatives were you don't want to get him those first option reps, getting used to that, playing against lesser competition in the G League and coming into the NBA, because that could kind of be like a growth spurt in his development too.
Yeah.
And I kind of made this point earlier throughout the week. I think he would develop more in Pistons practices versus going down into the G League, because nothing against the G League. It's not the NBA. It's really not.
And he already played there. He already, he already did.
I actually had him as a backup power forward in my depth chart. I had him getting backup power forward minutes, which I could be completely wrong. I do think there is minutes for him, but I think they're really going to ease him into it. I don't think he's going to come out the gate like Asar did last year, where he had to start because there was no defenders out there. I think there's a case for Ron to play a good maybe 10 minutes and kind of ease it throughout the season as he gets more comfortable.
I think it increases throughout the year no matter where he starts off minutes wise.
Yeah, I really don't think there's a rush to really put him out there unless the coaching staff and the organization feels like he's ready for rotational minutes. But I'd find it really hard to believe that they're going to send him down to the Motor City Cruise when the Motor City Cruise roster is just completely depleted and they really haven't made any moves. Or the only two-way guys that they have are Tosan Awoma and Donis Jenkins. Like, they still have another two-way spot open. I think the Cruise are going to have a down year personally. I don't think they're going to be as good as they've been in previous years. And Ron would probably be that first option. And I kind of that's a whole nother conversation and debate that I really don't want him being like that number one option and getting those first option looks.
That's a fair point,
because that could just be like, because someone had mentioned Amani Bates. Like, Amani Bates cooks in the G League because no one's going to be blocking his shot. No one really plays defense in the G League anyways.
Right.
And like he can go in, average 25 points in the G League, come up to the NBA, and then like the stuff that work in the G League might not work in the NBA. And then
Yeah.
you develop bad habits that way.
I think the way that it in my head makes sense to send him to the G League in situations is if he's not getting minutes at the NBA level, send him, for the weekend. To like I said, like not like weeks at a time, not even a week at a time. Like he should be spending 90 to 95% of his time with the Pistons. It's just the whole purpose of moving the G League team downtown in such close proximity is if he's not getting game reps with the Pistons, like he should be able to go get reps down the street,
Yeah.
Even though but you're making a good point, like with like, yeah, they need to find a way to like put him in the position he theoretically would be in with the Pistons, which, like you're saying, might be tough with where they're at.
And like I don't even know. I know Jamel McMillan was the coach last year. I don't know if he's going to continue to be the coach this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they just Trajan and the Pistons decide that they want to go a different direction, because the Motor City Cruise have been like really quiet in additions of like getting guys. Like they have like Jace Johnson, who was on the summer league team, but I mean, like that team got so depleted last year. They were getting guys poached like crazy. I mean, Jonte Porter, shout out, got poached, signed with the Raptors, and then rest was history, man. Because you can't bet on G League games.
Yikes! That's a crazy story.
I know. He was like low. He was probably one of the best centers in the G League. Like he was really trying to get called up.
I mean, when he got to Toronto, everybody's like, "Why did we not do anything with him? Like, why didn't we bring him to Detroit?"
Man, you imagine if he was betting against the Pistons and he got like a two-way.
I mean, he would have been joining the rest of the world, but yeah, a little less okay for him to do it.
Man, that would have been wild. That would have been wild.
Yeah.
It's a question from Organic Lindo. What caliber of player or assets could Isaiah Stewart get us in a trade?
That's a good question. I think at minimum you're getting a first round pick back from a contending team. So it's going to be a late teens or 20s sort of first round pick. You're not getting like a lottery pick out of him. And then theoretically a role player with that. Now maybe people are like, you're not getting a first round pick for Stewart. We better if we're going to move him. We traded one to get him. And also I do think Stu, like he is a very valuable player, especially for a contender. I mean, I've been saying it for a while. It's like he's exactly the type of player you need to win at a higher level. It's just he's not in a situation where we're in a position to win at a higher level, obviously. But I think, I mean, and he's improved every year. Like he genuinely, I know he gets a lot of hate, but I think that's mainly because of the role he's been put in. But he's been your most consistently improving player since he got here. I mean, he's turned himself into a legitimate stretch 4-5 option. And I mean, obviously still thinks he can improve on, but like he's gotten better every year. Motor's crazy. He's an anchor defensively, I think. Yeah, I think you can get a contender's first round pick for him and a role player to match salary and whatnot.
I'll just say the Pistons got a first round pick for John Lure.
Did they?
They did.
I repressed that era, if I'm being honest.
Do you remember what happened that draft? Or no?
No. What year was it?
It was the Kevin Porter Jr. draft.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
and we got 4 seconds for that.
Yeah, because we didn't have enough money to draft in the first round with the Bucks that were at 30.
Right. I do remember that. Oh, well, we took back Tony Snell with that too, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. It's all coming back.
Shout out Tony Snell. To answer Organic Lindo's question, I think I cannot give you a caliber of player that Isaiah Stewart would go for because I have no idea what his value is. I really don't. But in terms of assets, I think the Pistons would ask for future draft picks. Are they going to get a lottery first round pick for Stu? No. Could they get a mid to late first round pick for Stu and maybe a salary filler? Absolutely. James Edwards and multiple beat reporters that cover the Pistons have said, Boston has called about Stu. New Orleans has called about Stu. New Orleans is, I guess, still calling about Stu. The Thunder were calling about Stu. So all these contending teams that see the type of player he is, see the progression, see the type of energy guy, glue guy that he is, there's value for him in the league. And I think when you look at the contract now, the way they're giving out NBA contracts and the CBA is going up, that contract is going to age very gracefully, I think. And he's the type of player that I think you could get some assets out of him. Maybe you're getting around maybe 20s to like 30th in the first round and possibly some seconds. I don't know, but I think that's the type of return you could expect in terms of just draft capital. Caliber of player, organic, I really don't know. I don't know what type of player the Pistons would want first two, or if it's just like give us, maybe it's that the bar's really high, maybe two first. I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they trade Stu this year because I think that's something that a lot of people are like asking because of the Paul Reed stuff. But I mean, I think he's just way too valuable. We'll do one more question and then we'll wrap this up. Cool. So it's another one from Organic Lindo. And he wanted to know about the Jaylen Green stuff, which I talked about last week with Corey Woods, but he asked, would you sniff around at Jaylen Green's situation with the Rockets? The 4 wings drafted in 2 years smells like he's done there.
I think sure, sniff around. But it's another situation like with Okoro where it's like, I don't know. I'm not saying Jaylen Green's not worth assets, because he's obviously he's going to get a decent return. But I think for this team, I don't know. That's tough, actually. I don't know. I mean, because the thing is, you're going to have one big swing in the next, I think, 2, maybe 3 years. You look at the Tobias contract. It's perfect to pair with a Stu or something next year contract wise to go get a $40 million player.
Yeah.
It's perfect on its own to bring back a $30 million player or whatever. I don't know if it's 5% or 10% you can get back more than you send out. But so with that said, you're gonna have one shot, I think, to send out a Tobias or whoever and a first round pick or 2. I think next year we might finally be able to send 2 first round picks again, like 2029 and 31, I think. Or if the first round pick ever converts from the Stu trade. But because I think you get one push all that to the table move in the next couple years, I don't know that it's Jaylen Green. But if you go get Jaylen Green, you've obviously either moved on from Ivy or that's the centerpiece of the package. And what do you get in return for Ivy? Because that's where on its own, I'm not really going to give up what it would theoretically cost for Jaylen Green. But hypothetically, you get something else for Ivy and whoever, whatever, plus Jaylen Green that fit together with Cade and whoever else is still here. That's when it makes sense. But I think for your one theoretical push all your chips to the table, I don't think it's Jaylen Green, but it's worth exploring if the price is lower than I think it is.
So the Jaylen Green situation is really interesting, and talked about it a little bit last week, and they were in the sweepstakes for Mikal Bridges last year before the Knicks were. I mean, they had offered Jaylen Green in a trade package, and Brooklyn didn't want it. I think to Organic Lindo's point of them drafting 4 wings in the last 2 years, that is kind of a red flag if you're an outsider trying to look in to see what the Houston Rockets are doing. The point I made last week is you don't hire a coach like Udoka to rebuild. You hire a coach like Udoka to try to win an NBA championship.
Yeah.
And I think with Reed Shepherd being the type of player that I think a lot of people think that he's going to be, would not surprise me if the Rockets do trade him. Now, should the Pistons sniff around the situation? I'll just give you my honest opinion. I don't think the Pistons have the assets that the Rockets would possibly want.
Right.
I think if they were to go trade Jaylen Green and he did not get extended, that's another thing too. He did not get a rookie max contract extension. I think they look at possibly players like a Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. They have the young pieces. They have the draft capital to go star hunting if they want to. And there's been multiple reports about them trying to go star hunting because they really kind of fast-tracked the rebuild, adding like Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet. They traded for Steven Adams. Like, they're probably going to take another step in progression in the win total and try to push for that playoffs.
Must be nice.
Yeah, right. I think you could possibly see a Jaylen Green and an Alperen Sengun in a big trade for a star. I really think that. Could the Pistons stick around? Sure, you should stick around and see what the asking price is, and if the asking price is within your power to try to get him to Detroit. Sure, absolutely make that call. Try to make that trade, but just from my perspective, talking to some Rockets fans that I'm cool with on Twitter. They feel that if the Rockets were to trade Jaylen Green, it would be for like one of those like elite two-way stars to pair with their young core.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, like ideally,
I'm pretty jealous of their rebuild.
Yeah, me too. But they did have players to fast track it. Where our rebuild was
definitely
a second round pick when we held on to Andre Drummond way too long.
Yep.
And then we had the Blake contract that we had to try to figure out. And it's just like, that you had to start from ground zero. You had to start from scratch. Like all these teams that we started at the same time, like Orlando, Houston.
Yeah. We started 3 steps behind. Like for sure.
Yeah. They were
but
always
I'm still jealous.
Yeah, me too. They were always going to jump step us in the rebuild, and they had a competent front office, and they hired coaches that can like really elevate the talent. Where we tried to go, let's go get that big fish, let's go get that big name, and it just did not work out.
Nope. No, it didn't.
The Pistons looked at Kevin Durant. He will turn into stone. Yeah, I love KD, man. He was cooking in the Olympics today, but that comment made me laugh for a moment. Really.
Yeah.
Shout out. Yeah, it's wild though to kind of like think about Jaylen Green not getting extended, but Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, and Franz Wagner did.
Yeah. I mean, Houston's definitely in a boat where they're gonna have a lot of redundant same tier young talent. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I mean, look, if the Pistons can get in on that and not give up a bunch, I'm in.
Yeah, I honestly think that if we could actually trade our first, then you could kind of convince me into possibly trying to get him. But our first are tied up.
Yeah, for now. I can't believe we didn't get that protected pick back.
From the Knicks
deal. I just can't believe it. In any of the deals we made with them.
I want to talk about this, and then we can wrap it up. Because Knicks fans are pissing me off. And so they hired Mark Bryant, who was the Pistons big man coach last year.
Yep.
And I had posted a picture 2 weeks ago that Jaylen Duren was working out with Mark Bryant. And it's not uncommon for players to still have tight relationships with, development coaches.
For sure.
And these Knicks fans are saying Mark's going to bring Jaylen Duren with him to New York. I just want to say this. You guys are so delusional. Why the hell would we help you out even more? Like, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have Jalen Brunson. Like, that is a fact. We took no knees Kimball Walker. We took Nerlens Noel, who didn't want to be here.
Sure
and then we took Alec Burks just to help you out. And you had the chance to draft Jaylen Duren.
Yeah.
Like, we're done doing the Knicks favors. I'm sorry.
I hope so. I'd like teams to do us favors.
When is it our turn?
Right.
Like,
I mean,
Like,
It's getting ridiculous.
just send Brandon Ingram up here.
Even the Dallas deal, I'm like, I feel like we kind of did them a favor there too. And I know the whole concept is like, we take your bad money, do you a favor, you give us some picks. Like, I get that that's the idea, but we did it. We did them more of a favor than they did us.
Yeah, I mean, if you look just at the Knicks deals, like Troy did them so many solids to the point where like they're a playoff contending team,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like you guys wouldn't even have to, like. There was a world where the Pistons were going to go out and sign Jalen Brunson. Like those were the rumors.
Right, I remember that. And most of Pistons Twitter was like, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah, we don't think he's going to be. He can't play next to Cade. He wouldn't be a good player.
Not for
Did-
25 million or whatever it is. That looks
you
like
imagine,
an
like,
absolute steal.
Jalen Brunson and Cade would be lighting up LCA.
Would have been cool. Hindsight for sure.
What the hell, man?
But instead, we're like, New York, send us your trash.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
Alec Burks was pretty good first year.
Yeah, maybe
And part of,
maybe I'll turn back the clock because he's going to be in Miami. Something about that Heat culture.
100%. No, he's going to be an absolute flamethrower this year in the playoffs when they're an 8 seed. Again.
Oh man, Miami's such a weird team. But I do appreciate you coming on for an hour and 40 minutes, man. The time just flies by. I don't even notice we've been on for almost 2 hours. But I do want to give you the floor to promote, plug yourself, where people can follow you, anything you're working on. I know I did see you get back into the podcast game a little bit. So if you want to plug that, floor is yours, man.
Yeah, I dabble. I make an appearance when there's anything happening. But yeah, I mean, just follow me on Twitter at Pistons Thoughts. I got the podcast every so often. If the Pistons are worth talking about this year, I will be talking about them. If not, then you'll just see me on Twitter and you won't hear my voice. That's all I got for you.
I'll put your Twitter in the description below so people can just have a direct link to your Twitter, and they definitely should follow you. I always say you're probably one of the most positive Piston follows on Twitter, but I definitely could see that the Pistons did break your positive spirit this last season, and kind of saw a little spicy this season, which I was like, oh.
Something had to be done. But no, I appreciate you. Yeah, I always have fun coming on. This season, look, once Trajan, after that press conference, I'm like, look, optimistic Pistons Thoughts is back until otherwise said.
Well, you should definitely sneak into the party that they have in Cali this year.
Oh my God. Yeah, literally my girlfriend was running on the beach, saw a Pistons flag on the beach. Pretty confident I know whose house that is in that part of town. And then that night, they were tweeting pictures that they were at the party in LA. And I was like, that night, I'm like, come on. But
should have just got like the straight like DoorDash.
Oh, I'm gonna go buy a DoorDash uniform, show up to set. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's we'll see what happens this year.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming. Got over 1,000 people in here on a Sunday night. So appreciate everyone watching on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube right now. But we'll see you guys next week. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Peace.